morning, everybody. It's May 20th, 2022. I'm Charlie Fink here with Ted Schilowitz for This Week in XR, sponsored by Verbella. Next week, we have the Augmented World Expo, I guess the week after, right after Memorial Day. And we're going to have its founder and executive director, Ori Inbar, here with us in a few minutes to talk about it. It's a huge event in the XR world, although there are big developer conferences focused on XR, at Google and Meta and Microsoft. This one is the one for everybody. The big boys do make a showing. It's not quite with the same fanfare that they bring to their own conferences, but Snap is there, Meta is there, Microsoft is there. So it's a exciting prospect to get back together again in the real, although we had a smaller show in November at AWE. I think this year we may be back to our 2019 form where there were almost 10,000 attendees.
Yeah, and Ori's a good friend of ours, and this is the real sort of annual gathering of anybody that's interested in this space in some way, shape, or form across enterprise, entertainment, and consumer sort of deliverables. So it's an important event for us. We'll actually be doing some, I think, reporting and podcasting from the event if all goes well.
Yeah, we're gonna record a couple dozen people and do a special AWE edition.
Right.
So slow news week. I mean, I didn't know what we would talk about this morning, and then Bloomberg dropped an Apple bomb.
Yeah, one of the many Apple bombs over the last couple of years, but this one is unique because unless you've seen anything different than I have, it's only been Bloomberg that did this reporting about the board, the Apple board, which of course includes Tim Cook, the CEO, seeing a device at a board meeting and discussing it. But no one else has covered anything other than just covering the Bloomberg.
No, we were covering Bloomberg's coverage.
Yes. So Bloomberg got some sort of scoop, which who knows how accurate it is or where it comes from. And it became sort of a sensation this week.
The article suggests that they could be making an announcement at their developer conference in 2 weeks.
Right. So that's, in a couple of weeks in early June, they've got a developer conference, and then there'll be some more stuff in the fall. So who knows, right? It's certainly an interesting time, long awaited. And as you and I speculate, Charlie, of people that have lived inside a Macintosh ecosystem for effectively their entire lives, right? And use it both professionally if they're in the creative arts, and of course it's blossomed into lots of different places, and personally and socially. We all have this high level of curiosity of what it looks like to wear a Macintosh interface, to wear an Apple iOS interface on your head versus in your lap or in your hands. And how long have they been iterating and working on that to prove that there is a different path forward than what we've seen so far from VR devices? And
well, more than the look of the hardware is, I mean, what is it going to do?
Right. And how is it going to do it? Right. Because Apple tends to be really good at understanding that human connection to technology, better than, arguably better than anybody else, although others are certainly getting better at it. So they have to have a very Apple take on this that feels very natural to people that live inside an Apple ecosystem like you and I. So it'll be very interesting.
It does sound like it's going to be expensive, and they're not expecting to sell tens of millions of them right away. So it's very much of a 1.0, but it's so funny because Roni was on the podcast last week and he was saying, what the hell are they waiting for?
Right. Well, we talked a lot about, is there a 10X sort of moment where we've seen everything to date from Meta, from Vive, from Index, and the Pico folks and everything else that all sort of have unified on a certain style and a certain effect. We've also seen XR devices from Magic Leap, and of course the Magic Leap 2 is an impressive device.
Yes.
From Unreal and from others, from Lenovo, moving into that pass-through thing. But they kind of live in two very understood camps now. Is there a third camp that Apple is going to bring to the table that is effectively going to blow people's minds in a Gen 1 experience?
Gosh, I hope so.
We will see.
I hope so. It would make my job a lot more interesting.
So there'll certainly be a lot of discussion about it next week at AWE, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's bring in Ori and talk some more about AWE. I can't wait to hear what's in store.
Sounds good.
Good morning, folks.
Ori Inbar, what a pleasure.
How are you, sir?
Fantastic. Good to see you again.
I love the collection behind you. It's for people who are listening. Ori is sitting in front of bookshelves packed with AR and VR headsets.
That's the history of VR and AR. Yeah.
That's the idea.
Were those the same headsets that you put in the AR VR museum at AWE a couple of years ago?
Actually, back then we were able to get access to some collections of even longer collectors, like Steven Feiner and others that had devices going back to the 80s and 90s. So way more than I have here.
Yeah,
And everything up to the fake space boom.
One of the things, Ori, I was able to use and incorporate in presentations for a long time was in one of the AWE shows, you had this collection of every existing mixed reality headset, pass-through, see-through mixed reality headset, all in a room together in one of the rooms. And there were about 50 or 60, right? So it was incredible just to see all the different configurations and attempts over many sort of tech generations. And I took pictures of every single one of them and built them into like kind of this big thing that said, what's wrong with this picture? Why did none of these actually get any traction? Right. And we started to kind of speculate on where things looked from there. So it's a very interesting time where we sit today in 2022.
Exactly. I mean, for me, it was kind of incredible that most people, even in the industry, are not aware of the history of how these things have been built, since the 80s, 90s, and just putting it out there in a way that shows the progression, I think illuminates the whole idea. And it's not just Apple that everybody's waiting for. There's a lot of companies out there that have been working on this for years.
Yeah, and really how difficult it is to migrate something from a form factor on a desktop, on a laptop, even in our hands, to something that makes sense to wear, right? It's a very, very interesting space that we're all in.
So let's talk about AWE 2022. This is the
Bar Mitzvah, 13 years.
Oh, wow. The Bar Mitzvah
years.
year. Very
Wow.
nice.
Congratulations. It is a vaunted institution, and there's a lot of excitement about the upcoming show. I was just saying to Ted, I think we may be back to 2019 Forum where there were like 10,000 people there.
Certainly feels like people are very excited to get back to now. So that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, based on what we're seeing, it's definitely getting back to the pre-pandemic levels, especially in terms of the expo. We're expecting almost 250 exhibitors.
Wow.
And more mature than ever. So I think the expo is probably going to be the best we've ever had.
That's fantastic. That's a lot of exhibitors. And how would you break down the exhibitors? AR, VR, enterprise, entertainment, what's the mix there? I know it's a little of everything, but they're usually, at least in the past, it's been enterprise.
That's right. So it's definitely a little bit of everything. The idea is to cater to every single community in the AR and VR ecosystem. And actually, if you look at the expo floor on our website, on awxr.com, there's a new feature that is pretty cool. You can actually filter the exhibitors based on tags. And I just did a quick exercise before the recording. And first of all, yes, most of the companies are still enterprise. We're talking about like 92 out of all of them that are geared towards the enterprise in some way. A second category, which has always been a big category, is tools, development tools, creator tools. And the next one, which kind of surprised me, is interaction devices and software. We have 47 exhibitors that are focused on interaction, anything from gloves to suits to smelling in VR and so on. Of course, there's a lot of eyewear companies. There's over 35 companies that are focused on eyewear, either the full package, smart glasses or VR headsets, or the displays or components for it. And then, we have a lot of enabling technologies. Also consumers, actually 38 companies are geared towards consumers, which is, I think, also a record number.
Many more than in the past, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good sign. That's a good leading indicator for all of us. Yeah.
Yep.
I also noticed among the speakers a lot of company names that we haven't seen before. TikTok, Snap, Meta. It's great to see those companies that have their own developer conferences finally embracing AWE as well, because it offers much more of a community than a single company conference would.
Right.
Absolutely. I think for many reasons, a lot of the big tech companies have realized this is a great community for them to showcase their product, to either find customers, partners, and employees in many cases,
Yep.
So we have, everyone from Qualcomm to Meta, Snap, HP, Niantic, Microsoft, TikTok for the first time, Magic Leap, Oppo from China, Lenovo, and a few newcomers. Avatar from India is going for the top level sponsorship, and they're trying to make a big splash.
What can you tell us about that company?
Well, actually, it's going to be a first time for me to actually see the company. But their name kind of says a lot about it. They're kind of around avatars.
Yeah.
But I believe they're more focused on enterprise solutions, but also marketing solutions, and kind of I think they're trying to work on the whole stack. So
what do you think I mean, I know we're going to be talking about the metaverse endlessly, but what are the other, do you think, major topics going to be among the speakers and in the discourse among the attendees?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have almost 400 speakers, and
4 tracks, 5 tracks.
It's actually 8 stages, a total of 12 tracks.
It's truly the Woodstock of XR geekdom.
I love that. We'll adopt it. And first of all, I have to say that we have a record number of female speakers booked for this year. We have about 150 female speakers, which is for me
that's awesome.
Fantastic achievement. It's not easy.
No,
we have to work really hard to find those women leaders, and I think their talks are really awesome. But in terms of the types of talks, like you said, a lot of talks are going to have kind of the metaverse in their title. But I think the good news is that we're talking much more in depth. It's not just what is the metaverse and why it's important. It's really about specific aspect of it, of how you can actually scale it, how you can build certain aspects of it. And I think in that sense, it shows a bit of maturity since what we've seen last year. But, other topics, of course, a lot of discussions around ethics and privacy and safety, a bunch of the associations which are kind of pushing those concepts, and the conversation are going to be, on the main stage and in other stages. The XR Guild is making its kind of inaugural debut, in this event. And
what is the XR Guild? Can you tell us a little about that? I know it's independent of the conference. I'm just curious about what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's also going to be the first time that we kind of see the mission being described in more detail. But in general, it's Avi Barzev, which has kind of been one of the
he's awesome
leading forces behind it. He's been concerned with a lot of the ethical concerns, the openness, the again, privacy and security, and all these kind of things that are necessary for the metaverse, or anything with AR and VR to be successful. So it's really kind of trying to put together these leaders to generate a conversation and to share some of the insights and the guidelines with the whole community.
What happened with, and I remember 2019, we were talking a lot about the AR cloud. And now it's sort of become just this metaverse cloud. Is there still an AR cloud? Or is it just one big cloud for all of our metaverse computing?
That's a great point. I mean, in the sense that when the metaverse came out, a lot of the concerns related to the AR cloud transported into the metaverse discussion. But actually, you see a lot of progress specifically on the AR cloud. So the metaverse for the real world, if you will.
Yeah.
And there's actually going to be a pretty big announcement, which is a collaboration between multiple organizations, the Open AR Cloud Association, but also the Kronos Group, C3, all the kind of the big standards organizations are going to make an announcement around the Open Metaverse Standards initiative, and they will introduce some standards that are already kind of accepted to a large degree. So I think I first talked about the AR Cloud in 2017 when Apple released the AR Kit, and I said, in 3 years we'll have the AR Cloud everywhere. Of course, it always takes longer.
Well, I think when we were thinking about the AR cloud, then I don't think we were thinking that we were so close to having a digital twin of the physical world that would be broadly accessible through a platform like Niantic Lightship, or some of the things that Snap is doing with landmarkers and some of their other
Niantic and Apple, Google, they're all.
Yeah, so I think in 2017 I was not thinking digital twin of the physical world. But clearly that's where it was going. Now it's obvious, and we're all talking about that. The idea of integrating that into a metaverse where you could go seamlessly from a fully digital, world that is just a made-up place to a place in the physical world is very, very compelling. It was the sort of thing in Snow Crash where I kind of dismissed it and said, well, that's ridiculous. That's science fiction. And here we are living inside of it.
And I think, Ori, you mentioned the track around ethics and discussions around where things are going to head overall from a community standpoint, which is going to be probably the most interesting track, because there's so much push and pull, as you started to refer about this AR cloud, which conceptually is this unified idea, but with companies with commercial aims all trying to sort of deliver on specific, economic forces that they can control and own and profit from, they tend to fight against each other, right? So I think that'll be a very interesting area to explore over the next few days in person when we're all gathered together.
Absolutely. And, you asked about some of the other big topics. It looks like one of the things that will be most discussed as well as presented on the expo floor is around volumetric capture and avatars. And it feels like it's becoming sort of almost a commodity. The technology is good enough, whether it's, creating a Ready Player Me type avatar, or creating more of a realistic avatar with, in 3D or holograms, which have really improved over the last few years. And it seems, it's another form of a digital twin, right, of yourself. And it feels like that's already becoming something that everyone is looking into and using.
I want to be on the record as saying I do not want a digital twin of my current self. I want a digital twin of Charlie 35 years ago.
The beauty is that it's totally possible, right?
Exactly. It's funny because I was actually talking to Timu Tok, who was on the show, and he said the first avatar everybody makes looks like themselves, but thinner and younger.
And maybe with more hair.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But in a way, I'm kind of used to this look. So let's talk a little bit about, you have something called the Playground, which is always this extension of the expo floor that, is more experiential and often more entertainment oriented or artistic. Let me say, I saw, Where Thoughts Go there a few years ago.
It's kind of my favorite part of the whole experience, is to get into the new, right? Get into these more exploratory, experimental areas where people are trying new things and showing them off.
Absolutely. I think, it's been a favorite aspect of the event since we started it in, I believe, 2015. It was first, in a small room with a few kind of cool experiences. And since then, it has grown. I think this year, it's going to be probably one of the coolest ones that we've seen. And again, I think it's another sign of maturity. So we'll have a bunch of simulations, flight simulator by Vario, a car simulator with Talon, some cool rides, haptics and VR locomotion devices. Burning Man is going to be back with their experience, which is always cool. And the Air House, which that's,
speaking of Lucas Risotto, right?
Yeah, he did the Where Thoughts Go a few years ago, which actually won a Best in Show. And he's coming back.
I think it's, by the way, one of the best things on the Quest. If you're listening and you haven't done Where Thoughts Go, I think it's $10. It'll be the best $10 you spend on the Quest. Promise. I'll give your money back when I see you, if you don't agree.
Yeah, so this year they're bringing the Air House, which is this LA institute that brings in creators every month to just go crazy with AR, and they're going to bring some of those crazy experiences to the event. A lot of cool new stuff coming from there. And then, there's a new thing that we've never had, VR esports. is also going to be in the playground, including on the main stage. We'll actually have a competition, a live competition with VR esports on the main stage, and that's something that
That is awesome.
will attract a lot of attention.
That is awesome. So before we wrap up, Ted has got to run off to a board meeting, and I know you're busy today also. But before we wrap up, people at home, one good thing about the pandemic is I think it forced everybody to get good at remote and hybrid events. So in fact, if you're not going to AWE, if you can't afford the plane ticket and the hotel and the pricey ticket to the live event, you can watch it at home, and it's free, right?
That's exactly right. So this year, I'm glad to announce that the event will be accessible online for free on awe.live. So only the main stage sessions will be live streamed, but you can connect with, there's 10,000 people right now on that platform. So you can connect with pretty much everyone in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And the other talks, the other kind of tracks will be available for viewing a little bit of time after the event. So yeah, it's a great way to both, view the content, but also interact with people that are there and maybe not there in person.
AWE is a fantastic community, and you don't have to be live to be a part of it. There are events going on all the time, both locally and online. So I am just so inspired by the success you've had with AWE and the community that's come together around it. I think we're all very lucky and really excited to be together in Santa Clara from June 1st to the 3rd. It is probably the only conference I've ever gone to in my life that I wish was longer.
Yeah, me too.
And you guys have been a huge contributors.
Well, again, because it's a community. We're part of your community. So, we want to.
Excellent.
And Charlie, you're coming this year as our main stage MC, which is super
on the
cool.
second day. Yeah. I'll try and keep things moving and make sure nobody talks as much as I do. Ori, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you everybody soon.
All right. Safe travel.
See you soon.
Have a great weekend. Thanks for listening.